The clatter of plates stopped cold inside the Maplewood Diner on the outskirts of Knoxville. Ryan Callahan sat across from Noah Bennett in the corner booth, their hands almost touching on the checkered tablecloth when the voice cut through the lunch rush like a knife. "You got some nerve showing your face here, Marine," the big man in the John Deere cap snarled loud enough for every table to hear. "We all saw the news about you getting medals, but nobody told us you came back a fairy." His buddies at the counter laughed, and one of them stood up pointing straight at Ryan. "This is a family place, not some San Francisco bathhouse." Ryan felt the blood drain from his face. He had come home from his third deployment with a silver star and a Purple Heart, but none of that armor protected him now. Noah, a quiet high school history teacher with kind eyes and a gentle smile, reached under the table and squeezed Ryan's knee. "We should go," Ryan whispered, but it was already too late. The waitress, who had been friendly 5 minutes earlier, now avoided their eyes. A woman at the next table pulled her child closer, as if Ryan's presence alone could corrupt. The bell above the door jingled, and a tall man in a dark suit stepped inside. Senator Marcus Hale had been campaigning through East Tennessee and chose the wrong diner for a quick lunch, or maybe the right one. He took in the scene at once, the red faces, the pointed fingers, the Marine who sat frozen with shame burning in his cheeks. "What seems to be the problem here?" the senator asked, his voice calm but carrying the weight of authority. The man in the John Deere cap turned. "This queer and his boyfriend think they can parade around like normal folks in our town." Hale's eyes narrowed. "Captain Ryan Callahan, correct. Silver Star recipient. Served 3 tours. The senator stepped forward until he stood between the table and the angry group. "I suggest you sit down and finish your meal. Discrimination like this has no place in Tennessee or anywhere else in America." The room went dead silent. Ryan stared at the senator, unable to process what was happening. Noah's hand stayed on his knee, steady and warm. The big man sputtered, but the fight had gone out of him when he realized who had just spoken. Hale turned to Ryan and Noah. "Gentlemen, would you mind if I joined you? I believe we have some things to discuss." As the 3 of them sat together, the tension in the diner slowly shifted from rage to uneasy murmurs. Ryan's heart pounded so hard he could hear it in his ears. For the first time in years, someone with real power had stood up for him without hesitation. But he knew this moment would cost him everything he had tried so hard to protect: his family, his reputation, the fragile peace he had built since coming home. Outside the diner windows, the Tennessee hills rolled green and peaceful under a bright sky, but inside Ryan felt a storm breaking. He had spent his entire adult life hiding who he was from his Marine brothers, from his father, from the God he had been raised to fear. Now, in one public confrontation, the secret was out, and a United States senator had just made it impossible to shove back into the dark. Noah looked at him with quiet strength, and Ryan realized that whatever came next, he would not face it alone. The price of that realization both terrified and freed him in the same breath. The senator ordered coffee and began asking gentle questions about Ryan's service, his injuries, the transition back to civilian life. Ryan answered in short, careful sentences, still stunned. Hale listened without pity, without judgment. "I have a nephew who served," he said quietly. "He came out after his last tour. Lost friends over it. Lost family too. The system failed too many good men and women like him for too long." Ryan swallowed hard. "Sir, with all due respect, this is not Washington. This is Tennessee. People here do not forget." Hale nodded. "Then we remind them what courage really looks like, Captain. Not just on the battlefield." By the time they left the diner, the lunch crowd had thinned, but phones had come out. Ryan knew the video would spread. He and Noah walked to the parking lot with the senator beside them. Hale handed Ryan a card. "Call my office tomorrow. We are not done here." As the senator's car pulled away, Noah turned to Ryan. "You okay?" Ryan shook his head. "I do not know anymore." For years he had told himself that staying silent kept everyone safe. His father, the retired colonel, would never speak to him again. His mother would cry and pray and blame herself. The Marine Corps brotherhood that had been his whole world would turn cold. And now a stranger in a suit had forced the door open. They drove to Noah's small apartment in silence. Inside, Noah made tea and they sat on the couch, knees touching. "I never wanted this," Ryan said finally. "I thought if I kept it locked down tight enough, nobody would get hurt." Noah's voice was soft. "You were hurting yourself every single day. Ryan looked at the man who had become his secret anchor over the last 6 months. Their relationship had started with cautious coffee dates and late-night texts. Noah understood the weight of small-town expectations. He had lost his own family when he came out at 19. Now he sat beside a decorated war hero who had just been publicly shamed, and he did not flinch. Ryan reached out and took Noah's hand. For the first time, the touch felt like permission instead of danger. But the relief came mixed with dread. The cost was only beginning to reveal itself. That evening, Ryan's phone exploded with messages. Some from fellow veterans offering support. Others from childhood friends demanding explanations. His sister texted a single question. Is it true? He could not bring himself to answer. Instead, he lay awake beside Noah, listening to the steady rhythm of the other man's breathing, and wondered how many lives his truth would break before the sun came up again. The senator's intervention had been a lifeline, but it had also lit the fuse on every buried conflict Ryan had carried home from the desert. The morning news cycle did not wait. By breakfast, local stations ran the diner footage with headlines screaming Marine hero confronted over sexuality. Ryan watched from Noah's couch, a cold cup of coffee in his hands. The video showed the big man yelling the pointed finger, and then Senator Hale stepping in like a shield. Comments poured in below the clip. Some praised the senator. Others called Ryan a disgrace to the uniform. His father had not called yet, but Ryan knew the silence would be worse than shouting. Noah brought toast and sat close. You do not have to watch this. Ryan muted the television. I dragged you into it. Yesterday was supposed to be a quiet lunch. Noah smiled sadly. Quiet was never gonna last forever, Ryan. Not for people like us. The words landed heavy. People like us. Ryan had avoided that phrase his whole life. He had been the golden boy, the athlete, the Marine, the son who made his father proud. Being gay had always felt like the one flaw that could erase all the rest. Now the flaw was public, and the erasure had begun. Senator Hale's office called at 9. The senator wanted to meet that afternoon in Knoxville. Ryan agreed, partly because he felt he owed the man thanks and partly because he had no idea what to do next. When they arrived at the small campaign office, Hale greeted them warmly. He introduced his chief of staff, a sharp woman named Carla, who immediately began outlining options. We can issue a statement supporting you, Captain. Highlight your service. Frame this as the kind of prejudice that hurts veterans. Ryan rubbed his temples. I never asked to be a symbol, sir. Hale leaned forward. Sometimes the fight chooses us. They talked for over an hour. Hale shared stories of other LGBTQ veterans he had helped. Ryan listened and felt the weight of expectation settle on his shoulders. He had always measured his worth by duty, by sacrifice, by the respect of men who would never understand the war he fought inside himself. Now duty seemed to point in a new direction, and he was not sure he was brave enough to follow. When the meeting ended, Hale shook his hand firmly. Whatever you decide, my office stands with you. No pressure. But know this. Staying silent will not protect the people you love. It never does. On the drive back, Noah stayed quiet until they reached a quiet overlook above the Tennessee River. You are allowed to be angry, Ryan said. Noah shook his head. I am not angry. I am scared for you. Your family is going to make you choose. Ryan stared at the water. I have been choosing them my whole life. Even when it meant lying to myself every morning in the mirror. Noah turned to him. And what about choosing yourself? Just once. The question hung between them like a challenge. Ryan wanted to reach for Noah's hand, but the old fear still gripped him. Not here. Not in daylight where anyone could see. That night, the call from his father finally came. Colonel Thomas Callahan did not yell. His voice was ice. I raised you to be a man. Not this. Ryan tried to explain, but the words died in his throat. His father continued. Your mother is in tears. The church is calling. The VFW wants an explanation. You have shamed every person who ever wore that uniform. The line went dead. Ryan sat on the edge of Noah's bed, head in his hands. Noah knelt in front of him and gently pulled his hands away. You are not what they say. You are the man who carried wounded Marines out of fire. The man who still checks on his squad every month. The man I fell in love with. The word love landed softly, but it cracked something open inside Ryan. He had never let himself hear it before. Not fully. He pulled Noah into his arms and held him tight. For the first time, the embrace felt like home instead of stolen time. But even as warmth spread through his chest, the cold reality of his father's words settled in his bones. The price of love might be the family he had spent his life trying to make proud. The next days blurred. Reporters called. Old friends distanced themselves. One former platoon mate posted on social media that Ryan had always seemed off. The betrayal stung deeper than the diner shouts. Ryan spent hours walking the back roads around Noah's apartment trying to reconcile the hero everyone once celebrated with the man now being pitted or condemned. Noah gave him space but also steady presence. They cooked simple meals, talked late into the night, and slowly the walls Ryan had built began to crumble. Each conversation revealed new layers of fear and longing. Ryan admitted he had prayed every night in the desert to be made straight. Noah shared how he had once tried to date women to please his own father. Their pain mirrored each other, and in that mirror Ryan saw the possibility of healing. Yet the external pressure mounted. His sister visited unannounced. She hugged him hard, then stepped back. "Dad says if you do not make a statement denying it, he will never speak to you again." Ryan felt the familiar tug of loyalty. Part of him wanted to call the senator and say he would stay quiet. Part of him wanted to burn every bridge and finally breathe. Noah watched from the kitchen, his expression a mixture of hope and heartbreak. Ryan knew whatever choice he made, someone he loved would pay. The question was which price he could live with. The town of Oak Ridge, where Ryan had grown up, felt smaller than ever. He drove there alone on a Thursday afternoon because his mother had begged him to come for dinner. Noah offered to come, but Ryan refused. "This is something I have to do myself." The house looked the same, white siding, American flag on the porch. His mother opened the door with red eyes. She hugged him without a word. Inside, his father sat at the head of the table in full dress uniform, as if to remind Ryan of everything he owed. Dinner was silent until his father spoke. "The Marine Corps gave you everything. Respect, purpose, brothers. And you throw it away for what? A phase?" Ryan set his fork down. "It is not a phase, Dad. It never was." His mother started crying quietly. His sister stared at her plate. The colonel leaned forward. "Then you choose. Your family or this lifestyle." Ryan felt the room close in. He thought of the men he had lost in Helmand Province. He thought of the nights he had lain awake in barracks praying the feelings would disappear. He thought of Noah waiting back in Knoxville with patient understanding. The choice was impossible because both sides represented pieces of who he was. He left without finishing the meal. On the drive back, he pulled over twice to breathe through panic. When he reached Noah's apartment, he collapsed into the other man's arms. Noah held him and whispered, "It is okay to not be okay." They spent the night talking about everything Ryan had buried. The crush on his high school best friend. The guilt after his first secret kiss in college. The way he had thrown himself into the Marines to prove his masculinity. Noah listened without fixing, just absorbing the pain. In return, Ryan asked about Noah's life, the teaching job, the quiet activism, the fear that he would always be the man who ruined Ryan's perfect image. Their relationship deepened in the quiet hours. They shared stories and laughter and the kind of vulnerable honesty Ryan had never allowed himself. One evening, Noah cooked pasta and they ate on the tiny balcony watching the sunset. Ryan reached across the table and took Noah's hand in full view of the street below. The simple act felt revolutionary. For the first time, he did not scan for watchers. He simply held on. But the peace was fragile. A week later, a local veterans group disinvited Ryan from their annual gala. The email cited concerns about optics. Ryan read it aloud to Noah and then deleted it. The rejection hurt, but it also clarified something. He could not keep living for other people's approval. Senator Hale called again. The story had reached national outlets. Hale offered to host a small press event where Ryan could speak if he chose. "No pressure, but the offer stands." Ryan thanked him and hung up. That night, he and Noah lay in bed talking about the future. "What if I do speak out?" Ryan asked. "What if I lose everything?" Noah traced a finger along Ryan's jaw. "Then we build something new. Together." The words carried both promise and terror. Ryan pulled Noah closer and kissed him with a tenderness that surprised them both. In that kiss he felt the first real taste of a life not defined by shame. Yet the internal war raged on. Ryan still woke some mornings reaching for the certainty of duty, the clear lines of rank and mission. Being gay offered no medals, no parades. Only the daily choice to be honest in a world that often punished honesty. He began writing in a notebook late at night. Pages filled with questions about faith, about honor, about what kind of man he wanted to become. Noah never pushed, but his steady presence became the anchor Ryan needed. Slowly the decorated Marine, who had once led charges into enemy fire, started to find courage in quieter battles. The betrayal came from the place Ryan least expected. Sergeant Mike Torres, his former squad leader and one of the few people who had known Ryan's secret for years, posted a long statement online. In it, Mike claimed Ryan had hidden his sexuality during deployment, putting the unit at risk. The post went viral in veteran circles. Ryan read it with shaking hands. Mike had been the one who covered for him during a close call in Kandahar, when Ryan had broken down after receiving a letter from a man he had loved and lost. Now that same friend called him a liability. Noah found Ryan staring at the screen. He read the post and his face hardened. This is not about you. This is about his own fear. Ryan wanted to believe that, but the wound cut deep. He had trusted Mike with his life. Losing that trust felt like losing another piece of the identity he had built. The next days brought more fallout. Old platoon members distanced themselves. A GoFundMe for a wounded veteran Ryan had supported quietly removed his name from the donors list. The message was clear. His service mattered less than his truth. In the middle of the storm, Noah's own past surfaced. A former colleague at the school where Noah taught called the principal, suggesting that parents might not want a gay man teaching their children, especially one linked to the controversial Marine. Noah came home quiet and pale. Ryan held him that night, feeling the role reversal. For once he was the steady one. "We fight this together," he said. The words surprised him. He had spent so long avoiding fights that were not on battlefields. Now he was ready to stand for the man he loved. They decided to attend a small LGBTQ veterans support group in Nashville. The drive was long and tense. When they arrived, Ryan expected judgment. Instead, he found men and women who understood. A former Navy pilot shared how he had lost his pension after being outed in the 90s. A young Army sergeant talked about the fear of discharge under old policies. Ryan listened and for the first time felt seen without the weight of hero worship or shame. He spoke briefly about the diner and the senator. The group applauded not for his medals but for his honesty. Back home, the pressure from Ryan's family intensified. His sister called to say their mother had stopped going to church because of the gossip. His father sent a letter handwritten in the precise block script Ryan remembered from childhood. It listed every achievement Ryan had earned and ended with one line. "All of it means nothing if you cannot live with honor." Ryan read the letter to Noah, then burned it in the kitchen sink. The flames reflected in Noah's eyes. "Honor is not what they say it is," Ryan told him. "Honor is keeping your word to the people who matter. And I gave my word to you." Their relationship grew stronger through the fire. They took weekend drives through the Smoky Mountains, talking about dreams Ryan had never voiced before. He wanted to counsel other veterans. He wanted to write about the hidden cost of silence. Noah wanted to keep teaching, to show kids that different did not mean less. They began to imagine a life together, small and ordinary and honest. But every plan came with the knowledge that Ryan's family might never accept it. The trade-off felt sharper each day. The climax arrived at the annual Veterans Day parade in Knoxville. Senator Hale had invited Ryan to ride in his car as a gesture of support. Ryan accepted, knowing it would force the final confrontation. Noah stood on the sidewalk with a small group of allies. As the parade moved down Gay Street, the irony was not lost on anyone. Ryan sat beside the senator, waving to the crowd. Some cheered. Others turned away. His father stood on the reviewing stand in uniform, stone-faced. Their eyes met and Ryan saw the disappointment that had defined his life. After the parade, his father approached. The conversation happened on the sidewalk away from cameras. "You have made your choice," the colonel said. "Then so have I." Ryan felt the words like a physical blow. He had expected anger, but the quiet finality hurt more. His mother stood a few feet away, tears streaming. She did not speak. Ryan turned to Noah, who had joined him. In that moment he understood the price. He was losing the family that had shaped him, but he was gaining the freedom to shape himself. That night at Noah's apartment, Ryan broke down completely. Noah held him through the storm of grief and rage. When the tears finally stopped, Ryan looked at the man beside him and made his decision. "I am going to speak at the press event the senator offered. I am going to tell the whole story." Noah searched his face. "Are you sure?" Ryan nodded. "I spent years being brave for everyone else. Now I need to be brave for us." The press event took place 3 days later in a small Knoxville hall. Senator Hale introduced Ryan. The room was packed with reporters, veterans, and community members. Ryan stood at the podium in civilian clothes, no uniform to hide behind. He spoke about the diner, the family pressure, the years of silence. He spoke about Noah without naming him directly, but the love was clear in every word. He thanked the senator for forcing him to face what he had avoided. When he finished, the room was silent, then erupted in applause. His father was not there, but his sister sent a text afterward. "I am proud of you. It is a start." Ryan read it with Noah's arm around his shoulders. The road ahead would still be hard. Media scrutiny would continue. Some friends would never return. But for the first time, Ryan felt the weight of secrecy lift. He had paid a terrible price, but he had also claimed something priceless. Months passed and the dust settled into a new normal. Ryan and Noah moved into a small house together on the edge of town. Ryan began working with the senator's office on veteran mental health initiatives focused on LGBTQ service members. The work gave him purpose beyond the battlefield. Noah continued teaching, and together they built a quiet life filled with weekend hikes, shared meals, and the kind of everyday intimacy Ryan had once thought impossible. His mother started calling again. The conversations were careful and short, but they happened. His father remained silent, but Ryan no longer waited for approval. The loss still ached on quiet nights, but it no longer defined him. Noah became his family in the deepest sense. They talked about the future marriage, maybe kids through adoption. The dreams felt real because they were built on truth. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching fireflies, Ryan turned to Noah. "I used to think being honest would destroy me. Now I know hiding was what was killing me." Noah smiled and kissed him softly. "You paid a high price." Ryan nodded. "But I finally feel free." Looking back at the chain of events, the diner, the senator, the family rupture, the new beginning, Ryan understood that courage is not the absence of fear. It is the willingness to act despite it. The decorated Marine had traded one kind of battlefield for another, and in the end, he had won the only victory that mattered: inner peace. Was Ryan's choice to live openly the right one, even though it cost him his father's love and part of his old identity? Or should he have kept his secret to preserve the family peace that once defined his world?